You can start.
Okay. My name is Mark Jacoby, Jacoby. Currently, I maintain a residence in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. Also, one in Beit Shemesh in Israel. My address in Israel is Shoa Esrei Rehov Ruvain, Beit Shemesh. In the United States, the address is 14377 Washington Boulevard, Cleveland, Ohio, 44118. I was born 12th of August 1925 in a farm village called, that time was called Legina, Legina, in that time was Czechoslovakia. Small farm village. I was one of 6 children. I was the third in the family, the oldest of the boys. I had my oldest sister, her name was Margaret. Let's go back to my parents. My father's name was David Jakubovich. My mother's name was Ilona Jakubovich. My oldest sister, as I mentioned before, her name is Margaret. Right now she goes under the name of Warner, Margaret Warner. And she was born in 1922. Currently, she resides in Cleveland, Ohio. My other sister was also a year older than I am. Her name was either Francesca or we called her Fanchi. And she was born in 1923. Then I was the third one. I was born 12 August 1925. I had a younger brother, was born sometimes in 1927, I don't know exact date. Then I had another younger brother by the name of Irwin, was born in 1934. And my youngest sister, her name was Alice or Hannah, and she was born in 1936. My father made a living by farming. We owned some land, farmland, and that's how he supported his family, by farming. In this village where I was born, there were about maybe 5 or 6 Jewish families. A very small family. Very few Jews lived in that village. In order for me to get proper Hebrew education or Limudei Kodesh education, my parents decided to send me at the age of 5 to my maternal grandparents who lived in a town called Snina. So I was about 5 years old when I went to Snina. And I lived with my grandfather, whose name was Morris Weiss. And my grandmother's name was Sidonia. At that time, my grandfather could have been about 65 years old. I don't know how old my grandmother was. And also one of my aunts was still single, and she also lived in the same house. The house where I was born, my parents were poor. My father was had barely eked out a living just from farming, and whatever he was able to sell produce and here and there some stock and some animal he was able to sell just in order to whatever the expenses they need in order to support the family. We only had the house. We owned our own home. There were only 2 rooms and a kitchen. The rest of the house was occupied by the animals. We had some farm animals, cows, horses, whatever, and then also barns, and also to storage where they kept the grain. And that's basically, that was the life of a village in eastern part of Czechoslovakia, which was not too far from the Hungarian border, maybe about 15 kilometers from a Hungarian city called Satoraljaujhely. As I mentioned, in Snina was already a larger town. There could have been, I'm estimating, about 65, maybe 70 Jewish families. And therefore, I was able to get my Jewish education. Started out in heder and lived basically the life was I attended heder and also public schools, so-called public schools. And average day would start, I would get up around 6 o'clock, go to heder to learn something, to daven, go home, eat breakfast, and we would alternate. One day we would go to the public school in the morning and the heder in the afternoon, and then stay there till evening. Following day we would go to heder in the morning and go to public school in the afternoon. The life as when I grew up, but can I say too much about it? Like any Jew, there was anti-Semitism in the town. I'm sure that at night we didn't venture out too much, except if we had to go someplace. And when the goyim would get drunk, first thing is they would probably try to find out a Jew, see if they can attack him. Especially on the holidays. On their holidays, on Christmas time or Easter time, a Jew was afraid more or less to venture out at night because being beaten up. I remember even when I was growing up as a kid, the priest would come to school about 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 times a week, and for the first hour, they would, I guess, the goyim would either study about Christianism or Catholicism, and also they would say their prayers in the morning, because the Jewish kids walked out of the room. And a few times the priest would come to us and pat us on the head and make jokes of Yash and Moshka, and they make kind of anti-Semitic jokes, remarks about us Jews. But basically, we got along with the Goyish kids. And I don't remember any particular incidents at all where they were beaten up. So once in a while you can hear that they grabbed some going when they were drunk. At night they would catch a boy, they would tear his spies out. But otherwise it was not much to talk about it. I stayed with my grandparents until from 1930 to 1939. That's in 1938, where the village where I was born, which Legina, became part of Hungary. Until 38, it was part of Czechoslovakia, but in 38 borders changed, and my parents lived, became part of Hungary. And also the war already broke out. Even in 1938, talk about the Sudetenland, which was given back to Germany, and there were rumors already about the Germans attacking part of Bohemia. They got back the Sudetenland. So my grandfather, at that time already was dead. He died in 1935. My grandmother was already becoming of age, and she didn't want to have the responsibility of putting up with me. I was 13 years old. It was too much, becoming too much for her to take care of me. So she decided to send me back to my village, to my parents. And I left Snina in 1939, around before the Chagim, around September. In Snina, I grew up. I had a lot of the classmates. Usually in the heder, we have classmates, and we were friendly, just like it is, and nothing particular, nothing special. But then in 1939, I left them, and for the most of them, I have not seen any of my classmates except for one. And my life now began in 1939, already in Legina, which was already Hungarian, part of Hungary. Again, my father felt that being the oldest boy, that I should continue with my education, my Jewish education. He tried to send me to Auschwitz for I should get maybe some yeshiva ketana or yeshiva gedola, education, upbringing, but life was getting harder to live under the Hungarians. They lost some of the land that my father bought during, I guess, after it became Czechoslovakia. The Hungarian government took it away. So we had less land to farm. And certain restrictions were already put for us, especially the traveling restrictions, but we were still able to travel. At that time, in 1940, my oldest sister, Margaret, she managed to get an affidavit from one of my uncles in the United States. He sent her an affidavit, so she was applied, I guess she applied for a passport. I guess she had a passport when it was still Czechoslovakia, but it was renewed by the Hungarian government. And she managed to get a visa. And sometimes in the fall of 1940, she managed to immigrate to the United States. And so I kept going back and forth between are the village and Auschwitz. But most of the time I could not continue in my education, my learning, and I had to help my father on the farm. As things during the war got worse and worse, there were more restrictions put on the Jews by Hungarian government, more restrictions. But basically, we still lived as a family. And we were able to work the land. And I had no problem. I said if you wanted to travel in the area, we had no problem. I remember one incident. I don't know exactly what year it was. It could have been in 1942 or maybe even 1943. I was too young to be taken what they referred in Hungarian as munkatábor. The labor where any man between the ages of 19 or 20 and 60 was drafted by the Hungarian army, but they did not work, they did not serve in the army.
Labor battalions.
They were labor battalion, right. And so my father was also drafted, but he was already too old, so I guess after 2 or 3 weeks, they sent him back home. They had to, report to a city called Sarospatak, which was not too far from Satoraljaujhely. So being I was the second oldest, so I had to already consume more responsibility on the farm, to feed the animals, to maintain the work the land. And but after 3 weeks, my father came back home. And one of my aunts, which she lived in a village, was called Nagygeres. She was my mother's sister, and she had, I think, 4 small children. Her husband was in what they refer to munkatábor, in the labor battalion, and she needed somebody to help her with the children. So imagine she arranged with my mother. I should go down there, live with her, and help her out a little. I think the next day, I guess the police found out that a stranger came into the village. They came to my aunt's house, and they decided that I have to go with them. So I was 17 years old, maybe even 16 years old. So they took me around, and they were making the circuit around the villages, from village to village to village. They came to the house around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and they took me with them, and I had to follow them. I had to go walk with them. Finally, they didn't tell anybody where they take me, what they're going to do with me. My aunt, I'm sure she was worried what's going to happen to me. So around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the police decided to put me on the train, and they sent me back home to Legina. So that's one of the incidents that I remember. And after that, I tried again to learn a trade in Auschwitz. This was already the end of 1943, early part of 1944. So the trade that I guess they put me on, tried to learn, was vulcanizing tires. And I remember 1944, I think it had to be month of March. One day, we'll see the German army marching into Auschwitz. And so they were day or 2 days after that, when they came in, every Jew had to wear a yellow badge. And at that time, I don't remember who, but I guess I was sent back home, back to live with my parents. And I stayed in the village over there until Pesach, which was sometimes in April in 1944. We were not permitted to travel. We had to wear, anytime we went outside, we had to wear the yellow star. And there were no Germans, as far as I remember, in the village. But whenever, if we want to go back to Auschwitz, so it was not easy because I guess we were stopped already a couple of times, and probably we had to go back already because we were not allowed to travel without permit.
Mark, before you go into the war period, I'd like to know a few more things about your life as a child and life in general as Jews in a village. Can you describe your 4 or 5 families? What was Jewish life like? What did it mean to be a Jew in a little village?
I did not associate too much with the Goyim in the village. There was the relationship, we had friendly relationship with them. They used to, sometimes they worked, they helped out on the farm. Certain they needed, I guess they came when they needed something, they borrowed, going back and forth, and our relationship was more or less peaceful. Nothing as outstanding or nothing that I would say anti-Semitic. There were always certain remarks. They would always make certain remarks. But, for example, not too far from the village, there was a small river where in the summertime, the farmers would take their animals, especially the horses, into the river to cool them down. And my father did the same thing. And a few times, my father had a beard. A few times he was attacked, poor and beaten up. I don't know whether they came from the border from the Hungarian side or from the Slovakian side, but a few times they were beaten up. But that was almost a normal, expected in those days. But I myself did not experience any beating. If somebody called me names, I just ignored it. But I cannot say that I had a bad experience when I was over there growing up. The few people that from the village that we have contact with them, it was a friendly. I mean, the relationship was not bad, and if we needed some help on the farm, we were able to hire them. Sometimes if they needed some help from us, we were able to work together with them. And now I remember, for example, on a Shabbat or on a Chag, we didn't have 10 Jews in our village, in order to have minyan. So we would go to the minyan there were two villages. The village I lived in was called Legina, and then there was another village called Michalani, where there are larger Jewish population. And there was also on the other side of Legina a village called Chergov. Over there also were maybe 4 or 5 Jewish families. So we would go back and forth. 1 week we would decide, I don't know how it was decided, but we would get together for a Chag in order to have minyan. But we were walking, we would walk, it's about 3 kilometers. We would walk from one village to another village. And I don't remember anybody disturbing us. And once a week, a shochet would come to the farm and he would make the rounds. And if you wanted, we have a chicken or some kind of fowl in order to shecht for meat, or they needed more meat and they needed some calf. So he would perform the rituals of shechting. And of course,
Rabbi, synagogue, shul. There was a shul. There was a rabbi.
In Michalani there was a shul, and there was a rabbi, which I did not have as a boy growing up. I didn't have too much contact, but I would go there. I remember one particular incident, in the Erev Pesach, we would go there in order to bake matzah. So there again, I mean, we accepted it as a normal life. That's the kind of life I knew, and I accepted it as normal. And my association, I don't remember too much in those days, my association with the other Jews except in our village. And when everybody would come, the rest of the families, when all the men would come home for a Chag, so we were able to manage to have a minyan in our village. And so I got to, those people I knew more. There was a family, the Weinberger family, they lived across the street from us. There was a family, one of Berkowitz. There was a Frisch. And those are the people that I knew better because I would see them more often. Otherwise, my association was very limited with the Jews of the other villages. In Auschwitz, when I was on and off, it wasn't where I was there for a period of, let's say, or a year or 2 years. No, I might have been there just maybe a couple months at a time and then go back and to the village and back and forth, but it was interrupted. It could not be, it was not what we call steady, continued period where I was able to go to and study.
What language did you speak with your parents?
Mostly with my father, I spoke mostly Yiddish. With my mother, I spoke probably Yiddish and more Hungarian. And with the non-Jews, I would either speak Hungarian or the Slovak. My education, I only went in the public school, so-called public schools, maybe only up to the 5th grade. From 1930 to 1931. It had to be about 8 years, because until 1938, I was attending both. I was attending heder and I was attending also the so-called public schools. So that was my secular education ended in 1938.
Otherwise, life for you as Jews was a religious life. You were observant Jews.
Yes, observant Jews, right. As much as we can keep the religion, naturally my parents, we kept kosher, and whatever on Shabbat, and there was no such thing. But they had certain work has to be done on Shabbat, for example, like milking cows, something like that. So whatever arrangements my father made. But we observed all the Chagim, Shabbat, Kashrut, and we lived what I would consider a religious life.
At some point, you're sent away to the grandmother at the age of 5. Was that a good thing? Was this a traumatic experience? You stayed away? You stayed away from for several years from your parents.
Yeah. To me, I mean, at the age of 5, that was normal. I thought that's it. I mean, I didn't think about it. That was normal. And in Snina, at least I had classmates, I had friends. And we went to heder together, and we were growing up. My mother, once in a while, not too often, because they were very poor. They couldn't afford the trip. That was maybe about 3-hour or 4-hour trip by train. So they couldn't afford, she didn't have the time. She had to stay on the farm with the smaller kids, younger kids. So they didn't come, they didn't visit me too often. I just went back, I remember in 1931, I was 6 years old. I went back once for a few weeks to back home to my parents. But after that, I went back to Snina and I stayed there till 1939. And I did not see my father all these years, you know, except my mother once in a while she would come to visit us. My sister would come to visit us, and from time to time, certain families would come. But my regular routine life was I would get up in the morning, go to daven, to learn, and go home, eat breakfast, go to school, come home and again.
Do you remember your bar mitzvah?
I remember when I was bar mitzvah. I remember the parshat, which I became 13, but there was no celebration. There was no celebration. I managed to. I had also one of my uncles lived in Snina, and when I would go to shul, I would sit next to him. My grandfather by that time was there. He died because he died in 1935, and I became 13 in 1938. So he managed to get me in Aliyah, I guess, managed to get me maftir. But that was normal, no celebration. Nothing, just passed like any day. And now I became already a boy of 13. I had to, I don't remember about the film, but I imagine I must have put on the film. But I remember that escapes me altogether. And I remember some of my other friends that when they became bar mitzvah, so after the davening, we went to the house for kiddush. And but in my case, being that my grandmother was already sickly herself, and I might have been a bit too much for her, so there was not much of a celebration.
Okay, so you went back to
1939. I went back to Legina.
And okay, so now let's go to the time when the war starts. By the way, maybe one more. In 1939, actually, the war started. Your father was even conscripted to the labor battalions for a very short while. What did you know about the war? Did you know anything about what went on?
In 1939, I was in Auschwitz. I remember in the fall of 1939, I was in shul, and we knew that Poland was attacked by Germany because there were a lot of people that they made their way to Auschwitz. They came from Poland, and the rumor was already that, again, the Jews are trying, when the ones that they can get away, they can run away, they would flee from Poland through Slovakia. And so we knew that there's a war going on in Poland. To what degree or what extent, I didn't know too much, because there was no paper. We didn't, at least in my family, there was no newspaper. People were listening to the radios, especially when they carried Hitler's speech. They were almost glued listening to the radios. But that's about all we knew, that Germany overran Poland, and that Poland was no longer under occupation of the Germans. And we also knew in 1939, more or less in 1940-41, again, being between, right not too far from the Slovakian borders, and a lot of Slovakian Jews, mostly younger people, they were running away from there, so going through the border and trying to make their way to Budapest. And so we knew that life in Slovakia is, for the Jews, is much harder and more difficult than it was in Hungary. But again, my contact with them was very limited, and I cannot say too much what was going on, because just whatever I saw and whatever I heard, which was very limited.
Okay. So, and throughout these years, you yourself never encountered any Polish Jews who came, who told stories?
No, I did not. But where we, again, I'll go back to the farm. There was a railroad running through the farm, not too far from the farm. Evidently was a main railroad line. And I remember in 1940, 41, all day long, train after train, going from Hungary towards Slovakia, border with military equipment, trains carrying tanks, carrying trucks. And so we knew that the Russian going to be, at that time I didn't know, I'm Russian, but we knew that Germany is going to attack further east. Whether they would be Russian or not, I think, the rumor was already that they're heading towards the Russian border. So we knew that Germany is going to attack further, whether it would be on Poland or to Russia, just because of all the armament and equipment of the trains heading that way.
Your father was taken to a labor battalion. Were there other men from those 5 families that were taken to labor battalions, and did they come back during those years and tell you what went on?
No, in 1941-42, the only people were left in the village, the Jewish men, was one. They were about my age or younger, which were too young yet for the labor battalion, or the older people, my father and the neighbors, but anybody between the ages, I would say 19 and 50, or maybe up to 60, we did not see him at all. No, I did not see him at all. And I have no contact with him at all.
Okay, now let's go back to March 1944. The Germans walk into Hungary. That phase breaks out.
So immediately I went back to live with my parents, and besides wearing a yellow star and limited how far we can go, from village to village we were still able to get there because there were no, I don't remember seeing any German troops in those villages. But that's, I was, to get on a train and, for example, to travel to Auschwitz and to some other cities, I think, I never tried it, but I think we needed a permit, a travel permit. And that's as far as I know. And so for the 6 weeks or 8 weeks between the Germans marched into Hungary, we continued living life in the village. And then on the last day after Pesach, was, I believe, I'm not sure what day it was, whether it was Sunday morning or not. And early in the morning, maybe around 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, we hear somebody knocking on the door in the window, and we were told to pack up everything. In half an hour, we're going to be taken away.
Who told you?
Somebody from the village.
Local.
Local. Yes, somebody from the village. So we packed whatever we were able to get together, and we were put on a wagon, and they took us to Auschwitz, and they took us to what became the ghetto.
People just came, they told you everything was so mechanical. How did your parents react? I mean, what was the reaction to that?
Actually, yeah, everything was mechanical. I mean, at least I was naive. I didn't know what's going on. I don't know how much my parents knew, because my younger siblings, they were too young to realize anything. My older sister, which was about a year and a half older than I am, I'm sure she didn't know any more. She didn't know any more than I did. So we were told to do. We had no choice. I mean, because people came in, and I think the local, I don't know what they call it, whether they refer to them as militia or whatever, they told us, and we had to go. You know, we had to pack, and we had to pack. We packed the wagon, and we went. And there was no resistance.
Because you were Jews?
We were naive. We didn't know. I mean, we didn't run away.
Only the Jews were taken?
Only the Jews were taken, yeah. We did not resist, and I don't know if it helped any. We didn't run away or hide because there was no place. We were not prepared.
Did you know where you were going? Did you think? Did you ask?
I had no idea where they're taking us.
Were you afraid?
Afraid, yeah, because almost when I grew up with at that time it was to be afraid of a policeman. Policeman wasn't, well, as we know today, our friend. No, policeman was our enemy, especially with the Jews. And we tried to stay away from him as much as possible. So if a policeman came something that didn't spell good, that wasn't good news. So when they took us. We did not able to resist. I was too green, too young, too naive. My parents were too old. And all the other people were either too young or too old.
Did you think you'd come back?
I didn't think about it. I was told to do something, and I tried to do it. I didn't know any better.
So what do you take? What do you take when they tell you to leave your home? What does a person take?
I don't know. We didn't have too much clothing. We didn't have some food. I imagine my mother must have taken some food. She probably tried to take some pots and pans where to cook them. Otherwise, I don't know. I know my father, first thing is he went for his talit and tefillin. So I must have taken, probably I took my tefillin also. And maybe a siddur or whatever it is. That's about all that I remember taking.
Do you have some pictures?
No. I did not take, I don't remember taking any pictures. Whether my mother did, I have no idea, maybe. But I don't know, maybe she might have some of her treasures. She might probably put it together, but they didn't ask me to help them, and I have no idea what they packed, what they took. So there isn't too much I can say about it.
So it takes you half an hour?
It took us an hour, whatever it took us over there. Then they dropped us off in a ghetto. So life changed altogether. We no longer had privacy. We no longer, most of the time, I guess, someplace in the ghetto, someplace in the house over there, one corner, we stayed there one corner, but most of the time we had to stay outside. Come in a place, there were already walls around the ghetto, guards standing by the entrance, couldn't go in, couldn't go out. And so whatever, to be honest with you, I can't remember too much in that life, but just stay there in that one little corner. I imagine the family, some of the family members from other villages were there. I had some families, some cousins that lived in Auschwitz. I imagine we all more or less probably tried to be together. And
you lived in their apartment?
No, there was a place where they dropped us off, and I don't know whose apartment it was. I remember it was on the second floor. It was a very small place. I don't know, maybe then 2 or 3 square meters. And that's where we had to sleep. We probably slept on the floor. And at night, during the day, we were mostly outside. The weather was not bad, was nice, it was in May. And so most of the time we were just outside, nothing to do. We couldn't go anywhere. They would not let us out of the ghetto without a permit. So we just stayed there. And it was that kind of life.
Was there food?
I don't remember too much about the food, but there must have been enough food to keep us alive, to sustain us. Most of it escapes me. I don't remember anymore how we...
There were walls?
There were walls in the room?
No, there were walls in the ghetto.
Yes.
The ghetto.
Yeah, there were walls. Yeah, they were walled in. And I don't know how many. The ghetto wasn't too big. It wasn't big, but I have no idea how many square meters or something.
It was crowded.
Pardon?
It was crowded.
It was crowded, yes. And almost immediately, few weeks after we got there, not even a few weeks, probably a week after we got there, and we knew the area, so that some people had to line up and to be taken away from the ghetto. How many people? What I have no, I don't know, because again, didn't get to us until the third transport, which this had to be at least 6 weeks after we got to the ghetto. So we got there, not even 6 weeks, 5 weeks, because we arrived there 2 days after Pesach, and my family were taken away from the ghetto maybe 3 days, 4 days before Shavuot. So there's 6 weeks in between. So that's the weeks that we were in the ghetto, which wasn't too long.
In the ghetto, you were all together as a family?
In the ghetto, the family were together. Yeah, we were all together. Everybody was together.
Do you remember what your father did?
I don't know. I'm trying to think whether the man had to work or had to do something, but I cannot remember. I can't remember what we did, but
do you remember any information that you received about what would happen? Where is this all leading to?
No.
Transports left. Where did they go?
All we knew is that people were lined up and they were taken out of the ghetto, and that's as far as I knew. Otherwise, we didn't have a radio, we didn't have no way of listening to the news, we didn't have no newspaper, and being strangers, I don't remember being too much associated. At least I myself did not associate with anybody that I can remember.
There were a lot of people. There must have been boys your age.
Yes, but
not to mention girls at this point in your life.
I don't know, but I do not. That's almost like a blank. I mean, I cannot remember at all. That's like a blank. That life in those 4 weeks, 5 weeks that we were in ghetto is like a complete blank. I can't remember.
And then?
Then I think it was like on a Thursday. We had to line up, and so everybody, we took whatever we were able to take. I don't know. We didn't have no suitcases, so we were able to pack something, bang them, I don't know. And it was our turn for the transport. We had to line up. So I remember lining up in the ghetto and then marching to the railroad station. And so we were going, probably marching, maybe 5, 6 abreast.
The whole family?
Yeah, people, to be honest, there was about, I don't know, at that time I did not know, but I can know is about 3,000 people going to the railroad station, which probably took us maybe half an hour. Here and there we saw already guards, the German uniform, and rifle on the shoulders. Couldn't be too many of them. But there again, we just did whatever we were told to, so we just marched. Came to the railroad station. There were empty boxcars waiting for us. And we were told to get into boxcars. They put in between, I estimating about 80 to 100 people, men, children, women, in boxcars. We were very crowded. Didn't have room. Barely some people have room to sit down or to stand up. There was no room to lay down or to stretch out.
Water?
There was a bucket of water, but in the middle or someplace in the boxcar, I don't know if I was able to get to it or not to get to it. People had to relieve themselves, I guess, in the bucket. There's no other facilities. And the boxcar, they had, I think, one window, small window with bars in it. And the door, because the door was locked with a chain. And they left maybe an opening, I don't know, 2-3 inches opening. And that's, we were in the boxcar from Thursday afternoon until early Sunday morning. Stopped a few places. Where we stopped, they opened the door. I guess they emptied the bucket. Whether they brought in fresh water or not, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know. But the family together, we survived the trip.
Did you know where you were going?
We had no idea where we were going.
Directions?
No idea. We were in the boxcar, sitting there with no information. Nobody was telling us anything. So we were...
People in panic, people in fear, people quiet, they talk.
People in fear, people afraid to do anything. People thinking that if you obey whatever they tell you, that you're not going to be punished, or you're not going to. It's going to be. It won't be as hard on you. Out is up. Okay. It's okay. Did I know my father? I mean, now, if I would say, yes, I had more formal education than my father. I knew more. No, I did not know any more because he lived it. He practiced that religion more. I mean, he lived it. That was his whole life. That's what he grew into. And as far as I know, I don't forget, altogether, I stayed with my parents maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years. Out of those 4 or 5 years, 2/3 of the time or 1/3 of the time I wasn't there. So at the age of 5, you're a kid. You don't remember things. Between the age of 5 and the 13, I was away from my home, from my parents. The only time I got to talk to my father is either when we worked together on the field or walking back and forth to shul, or to shul to Darwin, where it is. That's the only time I had to get a chance to talk.
Were you close to him?
I was more with my father than I was with my mother. Because I didn't have no private time, so-called private time with my mother at all. So I barely even knew her. It's an unusual life.
And yet, were you close to your father?
Yes, I was close to my father. I was close to my mother. Especially with my father, I was close because we spent more time together. So we were very close.
But was he for you somebody who would protect you, to whom you would ask questions, yes to do, not to do?
Yeah, too many questions. I don't know if I have. I mean, there's not so many things that come up in a small village that would not know what to do, and he would make it an effort to try to send me to get some kind of education. He realized that it's important to have education. Now, my brother, who was 2 years younger than I am, he had a little disadvantage. Because when he was, we're not on, are we?
We're on.
Oh, we're on? He had a disadvantage because at a young age, I don't remember, he was 3 or 4, maybe 5 years old, there was an incident where he got too close to one of the animals, one of the horses, and the horse kicked him in his head. And he had to be hospitalized. I don't know for how long. He was unconscious, and that left him with some kind of a disability, where he was a slower learner than I was. He was not. He couldn't. I was blessed that I was able to get to learn fast. I was able to get on. And he was a slow learner. Now, they tried to send my younger brother to Snina to get an education, but two of us were too much for my grandparents. Especially my grandmother, because my grandfather was already sick. My grandfather, when I got to know him, he was blind. What kind? I don't know what was sicknesses, but he was blind. I mean, he was. I got to know him in 1930, so he was born. I would say at that time he might have been 65 years old. So he couldn't see anymore. Whether he had glaucoma or he cataracts, I don't know what he had, but he must have some kind of sickness. So. And so he was limited. I mean, he had to be in the special there. And as we get older, I had to guide him in order to to relieve himself or to when he wanted to get around. And so then my grandmother, she wasn't a healthy person either, but she was a little bit too much to take care of 2 young kids. So after a couple of years, they had to send my younger brother back.
Oh, but for a while he was there with you.
He was there. He was in Snina maybe for a year or a year and a half, something like that.
You took care of him?
Well, I feel guilty about this day. You know how boys are. Boys age 9, 10. You know, they always fight with each other and so on and so on. And you know, that's. So I remember that we were always wrestling, we were always fighting with each other. And even now, I'm 72 years old, and I still feel guilty for not trying to help him anymore, more especially as we get to the Auschwitz, which I'll come to later.
So I'm trying to get back to this train. You're on this train, or you're in this ghetto, in this train. You are with your family. And obviously, your family has their own share of tzuas.
Yeah.
How do you look to your parents for kind of guidance, leadership, or you feel that each to his own? Yeah.
It's more the more at least in my mind, I felt that first of all, I had no, I never imagined that we're not going to be together. I had no idea what's awaiting us. And we all thought that we were going to be together.
It's important to be together.
Yeah. And I figured already, that time I was 18 years old. And I thought maybe if I can be in the front and help everybody and keep everybody together or get the best what everybody able to get. I mean, in my mind in those days, but I didn't know what to expect. For example, well, let's get back to the train. In the train, there was nothing that happened. I mean, we sat in the corner over there, and we sat when I was able to sit, not much, and not to stretch out. I mean, there was the older people. They were, I imagine, leaning against each other, whatever. But there wasn't nothing. What can you do in a train when you crowded for space? There's nothing you can do. So we arrive in early dawn. I don't know what time it was. It was still dark. All of a sudden, the train stops. The door flung open. And we keep here shouting and dogs barking and rouse, rouse, rouse. And lights flashing in your eyes, blinding you. What can you do? It says, and everybody said, leave, leave the luggage, don't take anything with you, just get out of the car, get out of the box of the car, and line up. Men separate, women separate. So, men separate. So my younger brother, my father, and I line up. My father had a beard, and somehow I had a feeling that maybe if I go in front of him, that maybe all of us are going to be together. I imagine I must have that kind of feeling because I got in front of him. And the only thing he grabbed with him is his talit and film. So we line up, and there again, they're pushing some of them in the uniform, German uniform, and the dogs barking. And so the men lined up over there. So I'm there, so all of a sudden comes my turn to come in front of someone in a uniform, and I see it going back and forth. So when I come in front of him, he looks me over and he imagines, he waves. So somebody pushes me to go that line. That's the last time I saw my father. But my younger brother was with me. He was in the same line. So after we go there, so whatever we had told, I'm trying to remember. We had to go to a certain area and get undressed, and they gave us, I guess we had to take a shower, or else they cut our hair, and they gave us the uniform or the work clothes. So, but we were still together with my brother. Then we, from there, they took us to another place. But all of a sudden, my brother was no longer there. So I was there by myself. And so we had to line up. We already had the uniform and, or whatever you call it, the pajamas. And we had to line up in order to be tattooed. So happens that my uncle, who he was right behind me or in front of me. He was in front of me. So I was over there. So at that time I made instant decision. Instead of giving him my name as Markus Jakubovich, I gave him the name as Markus Schwartz. And we were.
Why Schwartz?
His name was Schwartz. He's Schwartz. He's 20 years older than I'm. I thought maybe I'll be together with him. I figured if I'll be together with him, and so if I gave him my Schwartz, we thought that we'll be together. I didn't see anybody. I didn't know, and I still didn't know yet what happened to the rest of my family. But so I was tattooed. I was given a number. Then again, we were marching, and I wound up in Auschwitz. Imagine they asked me whether I have a profession or what did I do or what. So I told them I work on a farm. And my uncle, he was also managing a farm. That's how we wound up together. He was a manager of a farm. So in Auschwitz, I was either in block 16 or block 18 over there. I was. That's where I wound up.
Hold on a second. Your uncle. Where does he come from? He was your mother's brother?
My uncle was married to my mother's sister.
Okay.
When I mentioned him before, I told you that I had to. My aunt asked my mother if I could go and help her out with small children.
Yes.
That's the husband. And when he was staying in Munkatabor, so he was the husband of my aunt, and he's the uncle that I'm referring to.
Back.
Now he's back, I guess.
Okay. Where do you meet him again? You all met in the ghetto?
We must have met in the ghetto because we were together in the ghetto. But I don't remember too much from the ghetto. That's still a blank. I mean, I cannot. My closest memory to him was in the boxcar.
You were on the train together?
We were on the train together.
His wife too?
His wife too. And next memory is that I'm standing behind him in the line.
Okay, you're an 18-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You get off the train, and do you have any realization that this is the last time you see your father? Because the next step is you take another name. Maybe your father will come looking for you.
I still don't know what's going on.
You don't?
No, I just follow instructions, directions. This is what I'm told, this is what I'm forced to do. I just do it without even thinking, just like a mechanical robot.
Your thoughts are only about yourself?
My thoughts,
about your mother? About
my
your
thoughts
father?
at this point, I imagine is just survival, to survive.
Because it's not less than survival. It's to be or not to be.
It's just to survive. At this point, my thought is to survive. How was I don't ask any questions. I don't go to anybody. I couldn't go to anybody. If I would step out of the line, I would be either shot or beaten to death, or the dogs would have bit me. So this point over here, imagine is just to survive. Best way I can survive. So I made this decision that the best way to survive is to somebody that I am with right now. I'm in the same group, so my name becomes Schwartz, Markus Schwartz. Nobody asked me for papers, nobody asked me for anything. So when they wrote down, I gave them the name of Schwartz. Then they gave me a number, and that became my number.
At what point do you realize, or you start thinking about your parents, your brother?
Already in Auschwitz. We're already in Auschwitz. I imagine I'm probably already talked to other people, and
How long is it since your arrival?
it was the same day, 2, 3. I mean, it's probably we arrived in Auschwitz probably that afternoon. Probably that afternoon or that evening, we arrived over there, and again, hopefully, probably I hope that I will get back together with the family or what. But this point, I'm just there. I probably just put it to work. So I'm just going to work there, and I have no other thoughts in my mind.
Are you hungry?
Hungry. They gave. I don't know. They gave us. Probably I'm hungry. I don't remember being particularly hungry in Auschwitz, but they gave us what they called a piece of bread, so-called, and what they called coffee, or they called soup, whatever. It's just warm water and maybe some color in it, and I ate it. I remember specifically being told by people, watch your shoes. Don't lose your shoes, because if you're going to lose your shoes, you're going to be dead. You're not going to survive more than for a few days. So we would take off our shoes, we put them on their head.
When do you arrive in Auschwitz?
When? That same day we arrived, and we got off the train on Sunday. That Sunday evening, probably I was already in Auschwitz.
This is what, July?
June. Sometimes in June. Yeah. So with my brother, it was, let's say we were together for a couple hours, and after that he was taken away. He did someplace else. That's the last time I saw him.
Did you discuss? Did you talk to each other? Did he cry? Did he hang on to you?
You couldn't do that.
You were mesmerized.
First of all, you're mesmerized. And then you couldn't do it. I mean, if they grab him and they put him over here, if he would grab onto me, he probably would be beaten to death. So, and I dare not look back, see what's happening to him. So if I'm told, go this way, go there, that's where I go. I wound up in Auschwitz.
You walked to Auschwitz? You were taken by truck?
I am not sure. I think we walked. I think we walked here. When we were in Auschwitz, I showed you, this is where we were, the tattooed over there. And from there, I think we walked there. And whatever took us together, and the next morning, already, so that's the life began in Auschwitz. So in the morning we had to line up for rappel to be counted, and after that we marching out to work. So we walk out of Auschwitz, and as I mentioned, there's the orchestra playing, but we march, and then see the sign, Arbeit macht frei. They took us to the field full of grass. They gave us, we had to cut the grass. They gave us what they call the size in order to cut the grass. I had some experience. Some of the people behind me did not have experience. So somehow, I don't know, people were told to follow, to do what I do, so I had some experience. And I was cutting grass, tried to help some other people, to work on, to show them pointers, because I had some experience, how to sharpen the saw. I was able to do it. I remember one incident, just vaguely, and I don't exactly remember the details on it. Somehow, a German guard, I don't know, he must have been either an officer or another, somehow he tripped over me, or I don't know whether I remember he fell. I know I was on the ground. And I'm surprised that he didn't, I mean, he already had his pistol over there, but he didn't shoot me. I was able to get back and in the Rhine and cut the grass. I don't remember the incident, what happened there, but he tripped over me. And either he fell, I know I was on the ground, either he fell on the ground or but I thought for sure that he's gonna shoot me. But he did not. And so it is day after day for about 2 months, 3 months. One day, over there, I am trying to help somebody to, you have to take a stone in order to sharpen the saw, and you have to hold it certain ways. So I'm trying to help somebody to show them how to do it, and the saw flips and cuts my thumb. So they took me that night. They took me in the infirmary, and that was the end of my days working in the field. Now I'm working in the infirmary. They stopped the bleeding somehow. Still hazy in my mind what happened, but now I'm working. I'm mopping the floors in the infirmary, and that must have gone on for a few weeks. But that time already I knew what's going on. I knew already that people were put in the crematorium. Children, I still don't know anything about my family. I haven't heard anything about anybody. And in Auschwitz, somehow, I don't believe we worked on Sundays. We didn't work on Sundays. And every Sunday, every second Sunday, we had to take a shower. They gave us new pajamas, new uniform, and they had to be checked for delousing. And of course, every morning we had to be stand outside. And in the evening, before we were permitted to go into the blocks, we had to stand, and they had to account for every person. Somebody was missing, or they couldn't account for it. We have to stay there until they were able to count them. Whatever period it took. Sometimes took hours, sometimes took less time. And so this was going on. Whether I worked in the field or now I'm working in the infirmary. And I knew that every 2-3 months, people in the Sonderkommando, or I knew already that they're being put in the gas chambers, and some other people are somehow, the news already filtered. And also people from the infirmary, they would empty them out and send them to the gas chambers. I don't know how or what. One day, I'm out of the infirmary. Next day, anybody in the infirmary was taken to the gas chambers. So,
How do you know?
we saw them being marched. We saw them being marched over there, and we knew already that people, everybody from there, so we knew already that those people are being marched to the gas chambers.
You're out of the infirmary.
Back in the block. Evidently, while I was in the infirmary, I was still stayed in the block.
Okay. So now what? You're assigned to what?
Now, I don't know the details, but all of a sudden I'm assigned to a shop where tires, vulcanizing shop. Evidently, I must have tell them that I had experience in vulcanizing. So all of a sudden, I'm in a shop over there. This is already in September, October, winter. Luckily, again, whether it's my luck or what, but I'm not inside. I'm no longer outside.
In Auschwitz what?
I still stayed in the same block. But they took us, I think, if my memory serves me right, I think they took us by truck to the shop. We were not too far from Buma.
Outside.
Outside. Oh, no, all the work was outside Auschwitz. Yeah, there was no work for me inside Auschwitz, except the few weeks that I was in that infirmary. So I think we had to, I don't remember whether we had to walk or march or they took us on the truck. And I mean, it's over there in a shop where we're fixing tires.
What kind of tires?
Trucks, mostly truck tires. Fixing them. I don't remember, there wasn't too much work. And I remember there was the guard sitting in the shop, an old man. He didn't bother me. He had German uniform. Yeah, I think he was in the Wehrmacht. He was in the SS. He didn't bother anybody. Nobody bothered him. He was sitting in a chair all day long, and we had to do whatever we had to do. So that was till about December.
At first, when you came in, you marched every day to cut grass.
Yes.
How long did you march?
I would say about half an hour.
What was the grass for?
I don't know. They didn't have animals. I don't know what it was. But we were mostly just cutting the grass. It were swamps. Now we were told not to drink the water because it was swamps. And I don't know why did we cut? Because as I mentioned, they had no animals there to feed the grass. Well, we just had to cut the grass.
How long did you work?
About 3 months.
No, from
June, July, August. I would say till the end of August.
well, per day.
Probably from during daylight hours.
Then you marched back.
Then march back.
Orchestra.
Yeah. Orchestra by the gate, going in the morning and in the evening.
Okay. You go back. Where do you live?
Block either 16 or block 18.
How many people in the room?
Maybe 40, 50.
You're crowded?
In the bunks, I think there were 3 level bunks, and I think there were 3 people to bunk.
There's a mattress, there's straw.
Straw covered something, and that's it. We were given in the evening. We were given the piece of slice of bread, what is so-called bread, and we had our cup for the warm liquid. That's it. Now, there was some trading going back and forth, and there was some kind of, I remember that one of my, next to me was somebody from Holland, and I'm sure there was conversation between us and information. But it's a blank. I mean, I can remember.
Jews, non-Jews?
Mostly Jews. There were non-Jews also in the camp. There were also a lot of what they refer to as Mishlings. Mishlings as half Jews. Either the father wasn't Jewish or the mother wasn't Jewish. And there were some political prisoners too, that they were not Jews. Polish, a lot of Volksdeutsche were there.
Did you speak with them?
Some of them, yes. Some of them. I did not have much to do with them, but some conversation. In camp, there was a lot. There was some homosexuality. I rebuffed them, got away from them, especially
Jews?
one.
Jews?
Jews, non-Jews. I remember one specific thing where, you know, when we had to take a shower. You know, you take a shower. All of a sudden, a guy that is behind whatever, working over there, all of a sudden he starts to, you know, wants to play with me. I tried to get away as much as possible from him, and in order to get dressed. So I imagine a little homosexuality went on over there. But I tried to rebuff it as much as I can, and for the most part I was successful. Yeah.
Are you... there are capos there. I mean, there are people. There are people with more power and less power.
Yeah, yeah. Capos had all the. I mean, they had a lot of power. Their capos, they were able to more or less they controlled how somebody work and how and what they work, and they were able to punish them, and they were able to punish them physically. But I was lucky. I didn't have no contact with them much at all. And maybe I was a young, you know, I'm a teenager. They might have pity on me or whatever it is, but for the most part I was left alone.
Were you hungry?
Was I hungry? I was not hungry and to the point where I was starving. In the morning, we were given this warm liquid, they called it coffee. So we saved part of the bread for the morning. So I ate that one for the morning. Around noontime, they brought us some soup, so-called soup.
Did you take off weight, or were you were not?
I was not starving. I was still. I still had maintain my strength. I was healthy. So most of the time they would fill up the cup. Once in a great while, there might be some left over in the kettle, so they would maybe give us. We were able to go out for a second helping or partial helping. That was enough to sustain me. And then in the evening, again, they gave us the bread and they gave us the liquid, so-called coffee, and that's it.
Did you form relations with anybody there?
Yeah, imagine this. I mean, we had relations, not close relations, but just strike up conversations. And especially with, I remember this boy, I mean, from Holland, that he probably we would be the closest together.
How did you converse with him?
In German. I was able to understand German and broken German and speak German. So.
Where was your uncle here at this point? Schwartz.
I lost them after went out from the field. No longer I was in contact with him.
You were in the field.
Yeah.
And then one day you're in the infirmary.
Right. That's
and
it.
This is a
That's the
different-
end. The end of it.
And the conditions are much better.
Much better? No.
Better in the infirmary?
No. In the infirmary, I just had to clean. I had to mostly just clean and.
Were the conditions better? Less work? Inside? More food?
Inside, no more. I don't remember the food, but it's about the same. Conditions are about the same.
And every day you go back to your old block?
Yeah.
Were these people who come back from the fields? They continued working in the fields?
Well, not necessarily. Those people, not necessarily everybody work in the field. They went during the day. They went different places. They went different places.
And you never saw your uncle again?
I haven't seen my uncle then. I don't remember seeing him after maybe the first or 2 days in the field, and that's after that I don't remember seeing him.
Okay, so you were in Auschwitz I. Now, at what point do you get the information that Jews are being annihilated?
Well, first of all, the smoke belching, the
You saw
outside
it?
of the fence. We saw the smoke belching, the pits right over there. We saw the corpses.
You saw corpses?
Yeah,
Where?
being thrown into the pits
Where?
outside the wall, the fence. I mean, we couldn't approach the fence, but we were able to see.
Can you describe?
Mostly we saw the first of the stench was terrible. And then there's a big pit, smoke, black smoke coming out over there. And we saw corpses.
That were not burnt?
And they were getting ready to be burned, but we at that time we knew already what's going on. That time I knew what's going on. We knew that people being taken away, they're being to crematorium, and also they being gassed and burned.
When was the first time that you realized that your family was with them?
Probably sometimes already after a few days in Auschwitz, I realized already that because we would see shoes piled up, we saw clothing piled up, hair piled up, and
You saw that?
yeah.
Where did you see that? Were you in Canada?
No, I was not in Canada, but we knew about Canada. We knew about Canada. And we knew also about the Sonderkommando also. And either marching to work or from work, we would see. And also when we had to change, when we had to change from our clothes, we had to get undressed, get our hair cut and shaved everything. And we saw right piled up. The shoes piled separately, and I mean, there was no secret then. Then I knew already what's going on.
Your shoes. Did you keep your shoes?
I don't remember if it was given to me or...
You were told to keep your shoes.
We were told by people in camp, guard your shoes, because...
And did you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, nobody,
So
I mean,
you
I...
had your shoes all the time?
Every night I put my shoes under my head. And anybody didn't have the shoes, couldn't exist more than 2 or 3 days.
Do you remember the people that you bunked with?
I don't know exactly who they were, but they were. I remember. And also remember that the non-Jews they were better off than we were.
Were better off.
Yeah, they were given more food, they get better treatment, and probably their work conditions were much better than ours.
In the same in the same labor units, there were only Jews and others, or was it all mixed?
I don't know. I don't know what they were in the same unit. I don't know, but only Jews.
How could a non-Jew be better treated than you? What?
Maybe they were given more food. They were maybe.
But they slept in the same place. You were given food in the same place.
Not most of the non-Jews were in a separate block. Yeah, most of them in a separate block. And I remember, especially sometimes in the evening or something. And one, I remember he had this like a tarpaulin, or he was able to exercise. He had some kind of exercise equipment over there. They were on Auschwitz, and I remember him exercising either weekly or daily.
A non-Jew prisoner?
A non-Jew prisoner. I was told that he was some kind of Polish, something. He was a high officer or someplace. And I remember him saying him exercise every morning on ropes, and I would see it myself, yeah.
Okay, so again I come back to that question. Do you remember at some point when you realized that your family is dead?
Yeah, after at that point in Auschwitz already, I didn't know who was alive and who was not alive. I had no idea. I was certain that my father, my mother, and my two younger siblings did not survive. Because at that time I was already told that people with small children, women with small children, or older people, they went on the other side. And being that they did not go with me, so I already at that point I knew already that they were no longer alive.
Do you remember your reaction to that? How you felt?
How reaction? How can we react? I don't know. Again, my first instinct was survival. Was my first survival. Just survive. If they're dead, then I can do for them. So I just had to do everything in order to survive. Not to try to stay away as much from the Germans as possible, and just do whatever they ordered to do, and just try to survive.
In such a situation, is there any emotion, or do you completely suppress anger, sadness in order to survive?
I was not associated with anybody, so therefore I did not have a means or ways to do not else than to obey orders. The tragedy, well, we were always hoping next day, next week, the war will be over and we'll be liberated. Always hoping.
There's hope.
There was hope. Don't know, but my family, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know where they are. I thought maybe my older sister and my brother, who is 2 years younger, maybe they're just like I'm surviving. Maybe they're surviving.
And what do you hope for?
The end of the war.
What will happen?
And that we're going to be free, and that we're not going to be, that we're not going to be in camp. Remember one August afternoon, Sunday afternoon. We were, as I mentioned, Sunday. We did not work on Sunday. So all of a sudden in the afternoon, it was a sunny afternoon, we see a plane overhead. Few minutes later, we hear bombs explode. Well, we thought maybe they're going to come and they're going to bomb this camp and they'll be able to escape. But nothing happened. Then we heard that they bombed Bomo. Over there, they dropped a few bombs. And but nothing changed. Nothing changed. From time to time, as we were marching to work or from work, we would see people being hung on the gallows. We were told they tried to escape.
In Auschwitz 1.
Yeah. They tried to escape, and they were caught. They were hung.
Do you pray?
No. Couldn't pray. I remember on Yom Kippur, we were working.
How did you know it was Yom Kippur?
Somehow we knew. Somehow I knew. They brought the kettle with the soup. I was debating, should I eat, shouldn't I eat? What should I do? I mean, I felt guilty, but my decision was to finish it.
You don't pray because you don't put tefillin on, but do you pray? Do you have a dialogue? Do you wish?
I always wish to be liberated. I hope to. And do I pray? No, I didn't have. We didn't have no. At least I did not have no siddur. I didn't have anything. And for the most part, no, I did not pray.
Inside your heart, do you pray?
Inside my heart, I did not, whether I said the Shema every day, probably did not. Inside the heart, I said, Lord, maybe, next week or next, maybe it'll be later, I can go back and being living a Jew. In the meantime, right now, I just have to do whatever I have to do. And so this is the life that went on in Auschwitz. Until sometimes we knew already that the Russians are approaching. The Russian front is approaching. We heard about the rebellion, not rebellion, that they break out, when they try to break out the Sonderkommando. And we also knew that most of them were caught, they were executed.
Did you know where it happened?
No. No, I didn't know what happened, but we knew what happened. And, but still the same routine, day in, day out, until December.
Were there selections every week?
Not so much in my block. As far as I know, I don't know. I wasn't aware of any selection, and I wasn't aware that people being singled out to be taken to a chamber, to gas chambers.
People who were Muslims.
If they were too sick to get up and to go to work, they probably were taken over there. But came the morning, when it came to time, I got up, I got dressed, and ate, and I went outside. So what happened with those people that couldn't get out of the block, I don't know. I was outside. And I was outside, whether freezing or most of the time freezing, because in the summer was better. But then came in the fall, was freezing, and didn't have no winter clothes at all. But I was there. As long as I had to stay in line, I stayed in line.
How long did you stay in Auschwitz?
Till about the middle of December.
Till the middle of December.
Right.
So from November it was very cold already.
Yeah. I was lucky that I worked in that shop, and the shop was warm. took us, I think by truck, they took us back to the, dropped us in front of the block, in front of Auschwitz.
How many people worked in that shop?
Not too many, maybe half a dozen.
Jews?
I don't know. I don't know. Some of them were Jews, but they were non-Jews.
Was it important for you if a person next to you was Jewish or not? Did it have any meaning, or?
I didn't ask him. And whether it's important, whether he was Jewish or not, everybody over there wanted to survive. And that's basically what we did. For the most part, most of us obeyed whatever we were told to order to do. And as I mentioned, the guard that was there supposed to watch us, he left us alone. We left him alone, and most of the time he was just sitting and snoozing. And he was not. I don't know if he was, anti-Semitic. I don't know, but we were left alone, and I didn't ask any questions.
You lived and let live.
Let live, right.
And every day you returned with a truck, you say?
I think we at least partially will go in with a truck, yeah. And then we had to march back into camp.
Oh, you went one way with the truck and you went...
No, both ways. We had to march. In camp, there was no truck.
Ah, so there you marched.
Outside the camp, we had to walk outside. And then we had to go to our work unit where we had to work, and I was taken to the place of work.
So for about 6 months, you were in the same place in Auschwitz?
Same block, same bunk.
With the same people next to you?
I don't remember. But
does it mean anything that you don't remember such a thing? If the people next to you that are in the same bunk...
I wish I could remember, but I can't. I mean, I wish I would if I could remember, but somehow I cannot jog my memory.
Because 6 months in harsh conditions, in such proximity, seems to me. It doesn't make sense not to remember, not to get close with each other. But except for that one person, I cannot remember anything. I remember some other people that they were there, but they told me that they're not Jewish or they half Jewish, and that they had. But otherwise, and on Sundays, we were able to walk alongside, inside the camp over there, inside the wall, the fence, as long as we didn't get too close to the fence. And the fence were electrified anyway. So what do you do on Sunday? It's your free day. How does one spend a free day?
There was nothing to read. There was nothing to listen to. So part of the day you have to spend, I guess, being deloused and...
Every Sunday?
It's either every Sunday, every other Sunday. And... I don't know what most of the time. I mean, I remember walking back and forth, up and down, and we were not permitted too much together as a group.
Was there anybody with whom you were close, with whom you tried to get close?
Except for this one fellow, otherwise no. But
He was with you till the end?
No, sometimes he was taken away. It was not to the end, about halfway in Auschwitz. And people would come and go. I remember they would bring in some people over there. I remember they bring from Holland. We knew from Holland because they would march them with wooden shoes, so we can hear them when they were a mile away. You can hear them marching over there. And some other time we would watch women being taken back and forth in the infirmary with the SS guards being taken back and forth.
Did you know about medical experiments?
We had an idea but experiment. To what detail, I don't know, but we had an idea. And we knew that outside the camp there was a women's block, and I don't know whether some of the women at that time we probably thought that they would be using as prostitutes, but I don't know. Didn't make sense because, as I understand now, the German laws would not permit. But I cannot mention it. I cannot say one way or the other. But we will see women being marched back and forth. Most of the time is when we were in camp, either in the morning or on Sundays.
In 44, there was only one airplane that you saw.
That's it. Only one.
Not others.
No, only that one day. That's it. And we knew as the Russian front is approaching. So then comes the march.
How do you know that?
Rumors. Yeah.
From mouth to ear.
Yeah. And so they were on the march. So we were ordered to line up and going on the march.
In Auschwitz?
From Auschwitz.
You were one day told to line up and start marching out?
Yeah.
When was that?
When? Around the middle of, I estimate around the middle of December.
December.
Yeah.
For snow.
Snow.
Okay, and where were you marched?
We were marched probably towards the west, away from the Russian front.
How long?
Maybe 4 or 5 days. Anybody that sat down already, as we were already on the highway, on the road, corpses on each side of the road.
From your own group or from?
I know different groups from before us. Corpses, some of them already, half of the corpses were already consumed by the animals. Some of them with a head, without a head, line up each side. And we hear all the time, bang, bang, shooting. Anybody that was too tired to walk, sat down. Yeah, well, I would say bodies over there and being burned. Yeah, that's I'm not. That's not imagination. I'm not making it up.
Okay, so try now to say it again, and try to be as specific as you can about these bodies.
The pit was a big pit, about I would say it was almost the size of this room.
How deep?
I don't know because I didn't get close enough. The smoke, black smoke, would come at certain times more smoke than other times, but it would be practically daily.
As you saw it as you marched out.
We saw it as we marched out. We saw it when we marched in. We saw it on Sundays when we were when we didn't go to work. We saw the smoke day in
day. You saw the smoke, and it was obvious that they're not burning trash; they're burning people.
Bodies. We smelled it. We smelled it. We smelled flesh being burned.
Okay, and this is continuously.
Continuously, day and night. Some days more, some days less, but practically continuously. Yeah, I don't know for how long, but.
And you say that the location was outside the gate.
Outside the camp.
Outside the gate where it says Arbeit macht frei.
Yeah.
As you walk out to the right.
As we walked out to, let's see, what, that would be to the left. To the left.
As you walk out to the left.
Yeah. There was a big pit and bodies being burnt over there.
Okay.
Okay, now we are back to the march.
We're back to the march.
On the march, as I said, anybody that sat down, by the time the guard came to him, if he couldn't get up and continue walking, a bullet went to his head. And we marched like this one for almost probably 4 or 5 days. I don't exactly remember. From dawn till dusk. At night, they would put us in a certain barn. We had to sit with the legs spread apart, other person in front of us. And in a small room like this one, they probably pushed in about 100, 150 people. Next morning, continue march. Snow, cold. We went through some villages. Then we arrived by the railroad station. They have the coal boxcars, they have boxcars, open boxcars. And they march us, push us in the boxcars. Again, how many people were riding, but there was not enough room to sit down or to, I mean, we had to stand, or we had to sit down, we had to crouch in order to be able to
Do you
sit down.
remember any locations, any names of places?
I don't remember the names of the places, but we went from Poland to Bohemia. We know we were in Bohemia, and then we wound up in Austria, in Mauthausen. Certain stations.
How do you know Bohemia?
Because we stopped certain places, and some people tried to throw some food in there to us. Maybe some water, giving us some water.
Where did you pick the train?
Probably in Poland.
In Poland still?
In Poland, yeah.
For about 5 days you marched?
4 or 5 days, something like that, yeah.
And you got to a train and you started...
They put us in the boxcars.
Right.
Now these are not closed, these are open boxcars.
Open box.
And this is already in middle of December or towards the end of December. It might have even been the beginning of January. I don't know exactly what date. Never calendars. And we are on the train, something like simple, I think a day and a half. And as we stopped, as I mentioned, we stopped in Bohemia over there, and the people would try to throw some food, and snowing, people suffocating, probably dead and froze to death. I remember having blankets, tried to cover us with some blankets, but then we arrived in Mauthausen.
And even on the death march, you are not hungered.
It did not make an impression that I should remember. It did not make an impression on me that I should remember. Probably we were given certain food, some food we were given. But I don't remember the details, but not enough impression that it should stick in my memory. I was able to march. I didn't have to sit down or rest. When I was told to rest, to sit down, I sat down. When I was told to get up and march, I marched. Then we arrived in Mauthausen. It had to be in the afternoon, because again, in Mauthausen we were put in some kind of big, I don't know, barn, whatever. So again, we were sat down and we were told to sit with the legs spread apart, and some in front of me and some in front of them. So I was there overnight. Following morning, I think we were only there 1 day, maybe 2 days, I don't remember. Following morning we were taken to Melk by truck. In Melk we had to work in the tunnel, I guess, to push the cart.
How many were taken to Melk?
I have no idea. But the whole group of us were taken to Melk. And that's where the problem started. That's where I was starting to get hungry. I was getting weak, and we weren't there too long. We were there maybe about I would say a couple months, and I was starting to get diarrhea. Now, I remember already in Melk, and later on in Ebensee, that as we were marching from camp to wherever we were digging the tunnel, this had to be more in Ebensee because it was already in spring after the snow has melted. But the food, whatever they gave us, was nothing but sawdust already. They were supposed to have some what they call soup with some potato peelings. No potato peelings, and I was starting to get hungry, and I was starting to weaken, and of course the diarrhea.
Other people too, or just you?
I don't know about other people too, but I don't know. You know, I just started telling about myself. Reached to a point I couldn't control my diarrhea. Was running day and night. I mean, just I was all caked, and but I still managed to go to get up in the morning, get dressed, whatever it is, and in the tunnel in the mines. I remember in the mines, we would find a bone. Somehow we were able to have fire there, probably those who were able to fire. We would burn the bone and try to scrape it and try to eat. I don't care what kind of bone it was. And then I was ready over there. I was hungry all the time. Probably kept losing weight, kept losing strength. And as I said, we were not there too long, only maybe weeks or a couple of months. Then one day they put us on a truck and they take us to Ebensee. So in Ebensee, the same thing, we had to work in the tunnels. In the Melk, I guess I had to push the cars in order to out of the tunnel. I didn't think I had to pick and dig. And in Ebensee, I was already sick. Hungry all the time. And sometimes when we went to march to work, we would walk by that's in the Austrian Alps, and we would walk by the forest, by the trees, and if you would see a bug crawling on the ground, I would jump out the line, grab the bug, put it in my mouth. I didn't care what kind of bug it was. Maybe that kept me alive. Who knows? But just jumping out of line and trying to get up, I was risking my life. But at that point, I was already losing my strength. Probably hope was already fading too. And I was getting sicker. I remember I was getting so sick that I couldn't get out. So there was a bunk where all the people that couldn't go to work, they lined them up there and they would come almost 2-3 times a day, pick up the bodies and take them away. I don't remember the details, but somehow I was able to get away from there. Maybe a couple days by not going to work. I might have, but I don't have the details. But I remember that I was able to get back to work. But the hunger and weakness was getting the better of me. And in the morning, when it was came time to line up, to be counted for rappel, and I would hide under the mattress and stay there during the day. If I would have been caught, they would have hanged me right on the spot. Every morning, every evening, people that were caught not go to work, they were just hung. And so I forced myself to, whenever I was able to get up, go to work, and survive the day as much as I can. That happened till about the end of April. At about the end of April. I don't remember too much about the work. Too much work I couldn't do because I didn't have the strength. And probably over there I had to do some digging and some pushing of the dirt out. Around the end of April, beginning of May, I think the work stopped. And there was rumors that the commandant of the camp wanted to put everybody in the tunnel and blow up the tunnel. We heard those rumors. And but I was really too sick, too weak to do something, and wherever I was able to schlep along, I did. And around maybe 4th, 5th of May, we noticed already that the guards disappeared, and we were told that some of the people from the village were already manning the towers or the gates. And 2 days later, the American army marched in, and first thing they did is they brought in food, a big kettle in the middle of camp, and everybody was running. And while they were eating, they were dropping like flies. Imagine I must have gone too, but I remember one day, a bunch of us decided to go to the village. And it's a hilly country back north. So we grabbed some kind of a bag and we went in the village from house to house and see what kind of food we were able to get. Most of them, they were only mostly older people, that at least that we saw. Probably the younger people, I don't know what happened to them. And they were telling us that we didn't know what's going on and we don't have any food, but potato here, a carrot there. So we would go there a few hours and then come back carrying the bag with some of the whatever we were able to get from the village. And we were again told, I didn't experience that they took some of the couples, and they put them alive in the crematorium, and they burned them. I don't think the Germans, I think by that time the Germans were gone. And a few days later, they wanted to empty the camp. And so we lined up, trucks waiting for us to take us back, everybody to their country. And I remember getting as far as Linz. I don't know how far Ebensee is from Linz. I imagine it's not too far. By the time I got to Linz, my fever was so high that I was unconscious already. And I had typhus fever. How long I stayed unconscious, I have no idea, but it had to be at least 5 days to a week. And when I came to, my fever broke. Slowly, tried to regain my strength. And I think after being in Linz for maybe 3-4 weeks.
In a hospital?
A field hospital. Yeah, well, like a field hospital, yeah. Remember, there were some Polish nurses, there were some doctors, but it was in a tent. And then after a few weeks, when I was able to get there, took us by truck to the Czech border, and we were on our own. And that's my life over there.
Tell us that period.
All right, we got. I think we were able to. I think they took us to Brno. I think Brno is the closest to Linz.
First of all, the question is, at that point you're what, 19?
At that point in 1945, I'm 19. Yes.
Who are you?
It's a good question. Who am I? Have to come back to. I didn't come back to civilization yet. I'm still have the animal instinct of survival instinct. So, but no longer starving. Somehow they gave us some clothes. I don't think I had anything. I don't think I had any papers, something, but it didn't make any difference. But if I remember, I think it was Brno. That's what they took us from Linz. Over there, by train, wanted to get back to my village.
Why?
Didn't know any place else to go. Didn't have anybody.
Do you have a family?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. Myself. I don't know. The trains were running, but they didn't run directly because a lot of bridges were out. So, to go back, the trains are crowded. So you hop on top of it and you ride on the roof as much as you can. Somehow I wound up in Prague. From Prague, I couldn't go directly to my village, so I wound up in Budapest. And slowly, I wound up back to my village. I don't know how many weeks later, but slowly wound up. When I came back to the village, they were already, out of the Jewish families, the Weinbergers, there were already 4 or 5 of that family. They survived. The younger people, not the older people, the parents. The younger people, who were a few years older than I am. I think out of that family, 4 people survived. Another man by the name of Berkowitz survived. Girl by the name of Lily Frisch, whose father owned half of the land around the area over there, she survived. And I survived. So there were about 6 or 7 of us. And we all lived in the same house.
Why? Your home was
Across the street. But already somebody occupied it. But I was able to get one room. I told him that I want to have this room.
What about what happened in your home?
Was occupied by this Pajkos family that we met when we were there.
Tell me.
And I think if I remember, I think that I told him that I want to have one room for myself, and I imagine I was able to get that room. And but the rest of the time, the family, the rest of the people, we ate together, and we acted as a family. And what can I do? You know, there's to take back the farm. I could have taken back the farm. To work the farm, I didn't want to work the farm. I didn't have no way, so somehow I wound up in Košice. Back and forth. So in Košice, I made some acquaintances. Being so close to the border, I knew from Legina to go across to Hungary, back in Slovakia. So that became my business in order to black market, take people from Hungary to Slovakia, Slovakia to Hungary. They would pay me. And that's slowly, this way I started to come back.
Who would be these people?
Most of survivors.
Jews?
Jews, yeah, most of Jews. And the black market, I would deal with cigarettes, buy here, sell there, dollars, buy here, sell there, some other merchandise, buy here, sell there. I already reached the point where I would hire people to carry the heavy stuff across the border because we had to go at night between the guards, going back and forth. So we had to go at night, cross the little river, the railroad tracks, which I mentioned before in there. And so we walked for about, I don't know, half an hour. We were in Hungary. I already made arrangements with a farmer over there to be able to get in there and spend the night. And in the morning, he would take those people to Auschwitz, and from there they would go to their destination. So I did this. Mostly 46. At that time, my sister, who lived in Cleveland, she tried to inquire if anybody's alive. We were able, somehow managed to get in contact with each other. So this way we started between my sister and I. Not too many phone conversations in 48, 46, 47, but with some letters going back and forth. And being in Košice, they were Jews. I was already able to get back to the religion. There was a Jewish community. There was a kosher restaurant. I was making a few dollars. So I'm making some friends. And from Košice, I would go once in a while to Budapest, to Auschwitz. So this way, slowly, got back to conversation. And 19 and also in 47, a friend of mine and I decided to become partners in business, and so we would travel together, go back to Prague, go back and forth. And in also I was really involved with the Zionist group, with the Bnei Akiva, with the Mizrahi organization. There was also a Shomer HaTzair group, I think, but I was going to Mizrahi group. And my sister wanted me to come to the States. She managed to send me a student visa, because there was a question for me to go to Israel or to the States. So I couldn't decide which way to do, but I guess when she sent me a student visa, then I guess I decided to go to the States. But in the meantime, I was drafted in the Slovakian army. Who wants to serve in the Slovakian army? Just get to, I want to be interested in. So I told you my partners. So I was lucky, I was drafted, and I had to report in Košice to the army. So I reported there, and I was A1, or draft age. I was healthy, so I had to be in the army. So my friend got a contact with a colonel who was a doctor, eye doctor, and we were able for a few thousand kronen for him to sign me out. I have eye trouble. My eyes are no good. So eyes are no good. So they gave me a sick leave, furlough, for a year, because A1, they cannot, all of a sudden from there, they cannot discharge me completely. So in 1 year, I had to come back in order to be re-examined again. So during that 1 year furlough, I managed to get to Budapest. I went to the Czech-Slovakian embassy. I told them I want to go back to Czechoslovakia. I'm a Slovak citizen. I want to go back. I need a passport. So they gave me a passport, just good for Europe, not in Europe, just good for the turn to Czechoslovakia. All right. This time is the first time I went back from Hungary to Czechoslovakia legally. Right now I have a passport, and I even have, I think, at that time I even had a student visa. Okay, but my passport is no good outside Czechoslovakia. So then again, my partner and I went to Prague and contact with the Jews, able to manage to somebody in the foreign office over there, again, for a few thousand kronen, to enter my passport and USA. That's how I wound up in America.
Okay, thank you very much.
So.